Arrived home after work to find my parents handing my room over to my nephew. They mentioned I could live in the living area. In fact, I'll reside in my own apartment, I stated. They chuckled, but once I left them they began. My name is Lucy and I earned a degree in computer programming. A contrast to most of my peers who were frantically searching for employment post-graduation. While they scrambled, I already secured a position during my third year. Soft Tech Solutions, a medium-sized software firm, offered me a role after admiring my work during a summer internship. The offer boasted a salary robust enough to allow me to move out immediately after graduation. But then came a twist. "Lucy, we were really hoping you'd stay with us a little longer," Mom said one evening as we gathered around the dining table. Dad, his head bowed slightly in embarrassment, nodded in agreement. "What do you mean?" I asked. "We thought you'd be thrilled to have the house to yourselves," I replied, puzzled by their request. Dad cleared his throat and then confessed, "Sweetheart, the truth is, keeping up with all the bills has become overwhelming. Your mother and I aren't as young as we used to be, and our expenses are rising." Mom quickly chimed in, "If you could contribute a bit, it would really ease our burden." I looked into their anxious faces, the very people who had nurtured me and supported my college dreams. Despite my lifelong aspiration for independence, I couldn't refuse. "How much do you need?" I inquired. Relief washed over their faces as Dad suggested, "Perhaps around $1,000 a month for bills and groceries." And just like that, at 22, I became the financial backbone of my parents. I dutifully stashed the remainder of my paycheck into savings, watching it grow steadily each month. I was frugal, spending only on essentials and occasional little treats, while my sister Olivia followed a very different approach to money. 7 years my senior, Olivia was married to her college sweetheart, James, and they had a lively 7-year-old named Ethan. They lived in a chic rental apartment downtown, living as if money flowed endlessly, even if it didn't. "Lucy, are you really wearing that same shirt again?" Olivia teased during one of her Sunday visits. As she lounged on our parents' couch scrolling through her phone, while James and Dad watched football and Mom entertained Ethan, I glanced down at my simple blue tee. "What's wrong with it?" I asked. With a dramatic eye roll, she retorted, "You were wearing it in your Facebook photos last year. Don't you ever buy anything new? The new Stella McCartney collection dropped weeks ago." "I don't need new clothes, these suffice," I replied, trying to brush off her barb. She sighed, as if my plain wardrobe was a critical flaw. "No man wants a girl who shops at thrift stores," she sneered. I bit my tongue, silently noting that while my savings were growing, she and James were barely making ends meet, despite his well-paying job. Olivia worked part-time at a boutique, mostly out of boredom, while their combined income vanished amid extravagant vacations, dining out, and endless shopping sprees. Later that day, while I was scrubbing dishes in the kitchen, Olivia cornered me. Her tone had softened from mockery to a sweet plea. "Lucy, can I borrow $200? There's a dress I've been eyeing, and I'm a bit short this month." I sighed. This wasn't the first time, nor would it be the last. "Sure," I said, drying my hands on a towel. "You're my favorite sister." She quickly hugged me, calling me her only sister, though she was already texting someone, likely boasting that she could afford the dress anyway. Outside of my day job, I dedicated most evenings to a side project, a home security app that I believed could revolutionize home monitoring. It was designed to integrate with existing camera systems, while offering intelligent alerts and user-friendly controls that were sorely lacking in the current market. "Lucy, it's nearly midnight. Why are you still glued to that computer?" Mom complained, peeking into my room in her robe. "You're racking up the electricity bill." "Sorry, Mom, just wrapping something up," I murmured, my eyes fixed on the screen. "All she ever did was play those silly games," Dad remarked as they strolled back to their bedroom. No wonder she couldn't find a boyfriend, I thought, choosing not to correct them. They wouldn't understand my work anyway. Sometimes it was easier to let people believe whatever they wished. Little did I know that my quiet life of saving and secret coding was about to be upended in unimaginable ways. The first sign came on a Tuesday evening when I returned from work to a chaotic scene. Our driveway was crowded with cars, and the front door was ajar with a large box sitting on the welcome mat. Inside, the living room was a whirlwind of stacked boxes, suitcases, and mismatched furniture. Olivia was orchestrating our parents like they were mere movers. What's happening here? Are you moving in? I asked, frozen at the threshold. James emerged from the hallway, his usual confident stance replaced by a defeated slump. James lost his job, Olivia declared before he could speak. Can you believe how unjustly he was treated? His friend betrayed him. I asked, glancing at James, who couldn't hold my gaze. It's complicated, creative accounting they called it. He was borrowing company funds, planning to reimburse every penny. But his friend discovered it during an audit and exploded. You mean he was embezzling? I ventured, and the room fell silent. My parents exchanged uneasy looks. That's a terrible thing to say, Olivia snapped as her voice rose. Real friends understand when you're in a pinch. I dropped the subject, watching silently as Olivia took charge of the household, ordering everyone about while barely contributing herself. At dinner that night, Mom announced that Olivia, James, and Ethan would be staying with us until they could get back on their feet. I nodded, bracing for the impending storm. Almost immediately, my once orderly life unraveled. Although James found a new job within 2 weeks, he grumbled constantly about the pay, half of what he previously earned. Olivia continued her part-time stint at the boutique, working just enough hours to claim she was contributing, yet her spending left little behind. This chicken is terribly dry, Olivia complained at dinner one night, pushing her plate aside. Mom, can't you use any seasoning? We used to dine at Bissimo's every Thursday. The food was amazing. Instead of defending Mom or telling Olivia to make her own meal, Mom merely nodded apologetically. I quietly savored my perfectly cooked chicken, choosing to remain silent. The family dynamic had shifted dramatically. Olivia had become the focal point of everyone's concerns. Her issues now our collective burden, while I was reduced to an ATM for the household. One evening while I was burning the midnight oil on my security app, Olivia burst into my room without knocking. I need $300, she declared brusquely. Ethan needs new shoes, and we want to take him to the amusement park this weekend. Isn't James's paycheck enough? I asked, but she snapped, we have other expenses. I conceded that day, though the pattern continued. The following week, when she made the same request, I finally pushed back. Perhaps you should consider a full-time job, I suggested during dinner, noting a boutique sign in the window. Olivia's face flushed with indignation. I can't. Believe how heartless you are. I need to be available for Ethan after school, and Mom and Dad are always here, she argued. They can watch him for a couple of hours, that's not the issue, I countered. She exploded, tossing her napkin and storming out, with James following and giving me a pointed look. Mom's disappointed shake of her head said it all. Lucy, how can you be so unfeeling? Your sister is struggling. Everyone here is. I muttered, but my words fell on deaf ears as Olivia commandeered the house, leaving me the role of silent bill payer. Weeks later, after a period of isolation from my family, no calls, just financial pleas through friends, I focused on finishing my security app. After countless late nights and weekends hunched over my keyboard, it was finally ready for presentation. This is phenomenal, my boss Mark remarked in his office, his eyes lighting up as I demonstrated its features. Detecting precise movements, distinguishing humans from animals, and sending customized alerts. The user interface is so intuitive. Did you develop all of this on your own? He asked. I nodded modestly. This project could transform the home security market. Our company could lead the industry if we owned it. My heart pounded as he offered me $500,000 for full ownership, plus a share of future royalties. I maintained a neutral expression, though inside I was elated. $500,000 plus future income was beyond my wildest dreams. That sounds fair, I managed, shaking his hand and leaving his office with a newfound wealth. Yet, as I drove home, I resolved to keep this windfall a secret from my family. I knew that if they discovered the money, it would only fuel Olivia's shopping sprees and my parents' enabling behavior. That evening I phoned Sarah, a realtor friend who had helped a colleague secure an apartment. I need my own place, I confided, speaking softly from my car in the driveway. I want to buy an apartment close to work, ready for immediate move-in. Absolutely, I already have a few options in mind. Let's meet tomorrow after your shift, Sarah assured me. When I returned home that night, I found everyone assembled in the living room, a rare sight on a weeknight. As soon as I stepped in, conversation ceased. Mom patted the empty space on the sofa beside her. "Lucy, we need to talk," she began cautiously. "We've been crunching numbers, and with 5 adults and a child in the house, our bills have skyrocketed. You know how much food a growing boy needs." Dad interjected with awkward glances, and Mom continued, "We hoped you might be able to pitch in a bit more. The $1,000 a month you've been giving just isn't cutting it." I surveyed the room. My parents looked both embarrassed and hopeful, while Olivia nonchalantly examined her manicured nails, clearly pretending the idea wasn't hers. "Are Olivia and James contributing anything?" I asked. My parents exchanged sheepish looks. "They're in a tight spot," Mom murmured. "And you being single and independent can help a bit more." I exhaled slowly, counting silently to 10. "How much more?" I asked. Dad hesitantly suggested, "Maybe $2,000 a month." I felt overwhelmed, tears, laughter, anger, all mixed in. I simply nodded. That month, Olivia managed to flash a small smile, convinced she had won. But her triumph was short-lived. 3 days later, Sarah showed me a stunning apartment complex just 10 minutes from my office. The one-bedroom unit was modern, bright, and perched on the top floor with a charming balcony. I used part of the funds from my app sale to pay cash, and by the end of the day I had signed the papers. While I was discreetly furnishing my new place, strange happenings unfolded at home. Mom, Dad, and Olivia exchanged secretive glances over dinner, while James sat quietly, occasionally assisting Ethan with his food. Something was amiss, but I couldn't pinpoint what, until 2 days later when I returned from work to find my belongings piled in the hallway. Books, clothes, my laptop, and even my childhood stuffed bear were all haphazardly dumped. "What on earth?" I muttered as I dropped my bag and headed to my bedroom, only to find it transformed. Ethan now occupied my old room with superhero-themed sheets, a video game playing, and walls once adorned with programming certificates now decorated with cartoon posters. My desk was replaced by a small table cluttered with crayons and action figures. "Aunt Lucy, look at your new room. It's awesome," Ethan chirped. Before I could answer, Olivia appeared in the doorway. "Oh, you're home," she said, unruffled. "We moved Ethan into your room because he needs space for his toys and schoolwork." "And where am I supposed to sleep?" I asked. Mom, visibly nervous, stepped forward. "Lucy dear, we thought since you're hardly ever home, always busy with work or that computer, you wouldn't mind sleeping on the sofa in the living room." I glanced between Mom and Olivia, who wore smug expressions. "So, you rearranged everything without asking? We knew you'd protest," Olivia sneered. "And Ethan really needed the space?" I pressed. Mom exchanged another look and mumbled, "Well, we figured Olivia could use a dressing room. You know how many outfits she has, and her room with James is too cramped." I stared in disbelief. They had stripped me of my lifelong bedroom, the very space I was effectively subsidizing with my $2,000 monthly contribution. Something inside me snapped, but rather than unleash fury, I calmly said, "That's fine. I won't sleep on the sofa because I'll be living in my own apartment." Olivia burst into laughter. "Your own imaginary apartment? Give it up, Lucy. We all know you don't have one." "I do actually," I replied evenly. "I bought it last week. I was going to announce it, but you made my decision for me." Mom and Olivia stared at me as if I'd sprouted a second head. "You bought an apartment?" Mom asked, astonished. "With what money?" Olivia pressed. "That's not important," I said curtly, heading downstairs. "What matters is that I'm moving out today." I called a moving company. Their earliest available slot was early the next morning. Then I phoned my boss to request a day off. Throughout this upheaval, my family hovered nearby, their faces a mix of disbelief and growing worry. "Lucy, you can't be serious," Dad finally said, emerging from the garage. "I am completely serious," I replied, ending my call with the movers, scheduled for 7 a.m. tomorrow. "But we need to talk about this," Mom implored. "If it's just about the room, we can work something out. Maybe Ethan can share with you for a while." "It's not just the room," I interrupted. "It's about respect and boundaries, and the fact that I'm paying $200 a month to live here. Yet I'm treated like I'm less important than everyone else." Olivia, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly interjected. Wait, you actually bought an apartment? With what money? You're only a junior developer. I didn't respond. I'm going to pack up the rest of my things now, I announced, moving past them toward the hallway pile. The next morning, the movers arrived promptly at 7 a.m. I directed them to the growing heap of my belongings as I gathered the rest from around the house. My family watched in stunned silence as box after box was loaded onto the truck. Where exactly is this apartment? Dad asked as I performed a final check near my makeshift office. I replied vaguely, somewhere I can call my own. How much did it cost? Olivia demanded. And how did you manage to afford it? I turned to face them, the room filled with expectant stares. That's not really any of your business. We're family though, Mom said, her voice soft and hurt. Family means sharing responsibility, Lucy, I countered. For too long it's been one-sided around here. Olivia snapped. So you're abandoning us? Tears welled in Mom's eyes. What about the bills, the groceries? She asked. Olivia and James are adults with jobs. They should contribute. Maybe you should reconsider your spending habits, I suggested. Olivia's face flushed with indignation. You know what? I think you should give us your apartment. We need it more. We have a child. I couldn't help but laugh at the sheer audacity. No, Olivia, I'm not giving you my apartment or any of my money anymore. Miss? Look, one of the movers is here. Are you ready to go? I nodded, picking up my purse. I'm ready, Lucy, I said, trailing after the moving truck as I stepped into my new life. That evening, Mom pleaded one last time. Lucy, please don't leave like this. I'll call you in a few days. I'm not making any promises, I replied shortly, bidding goodbye as I followed the truck to my new apartment. With every mile that separated me from my family's home, I felt a growing sense of liberation. A first taste of putting myself first. The next few days blurred into a whirlwind of unpacking, arranging furniture, and setting up utilities. I kept my phone off, expecting an avalanche of messages once I reconnected. When I finally checked, there were dozens of missed calls and texts ranging from angry to pleading. After a week of silence, I decided to visit my parents for a calm conversation about boundaries and expectations. Pulling into the driveway that Saturday morning, I noticed the curtains twitch. Clearly, they had been watching for me. I barely reached the door before it swung open, and Mom enveloped me in a tight hug. Lucy, thank goodness you're here. We've been so worried. Dad appeared, his expression a mix of happiness and discomfort, while Olivia and James sat in the living room with Ethan playing on the floor. I'm not moving back, I declared before they could jump to conclusions. I just came to talk and understand things better. We've been doing a lot of thinking, Lucy, Mom assured me as she led me inside. Dad started. We know we made mistakes. Your room is yours again whenever you want it. Ethan was returned to his old room, and the proposed dressing room for Olivia was abandoned. I appreciate that, but I'm happy in my new place, I said. We miss you, Mom replied. But truly, the reason for our change of heart is that we need your money. No one denies it, I gently corrected. We could work something out. You could keep your apartment and still help with expenses, or we could move into your apartment and reclaim the house. I almost laughed at the suggestion. No, Olivia. I'm not giving you my apartment or my money. That's not fair. Olivia exploded. You're so selfish. How did you even afford an apartment? Have you been hiding money from us all these years? I sold an app one developed, the security program I was working on at night. You all thought I was just playing video games. My boss bought it for $500,000 plus royalties, I explained quietly. A deafening silence followed until James finally murmured. $500,000? Mom looked faint. Why didn't you tell us? She whispered. Because I knew what would happen. I knew you'd always find a reason why you deserved that money more than I did. So you're just abandoning us? Olivia demanded dramatically. After everything you've done for me? I stood, anger simmering. What exactly have you done? Borrow money and never repay it, criticize my choices, move my things without asking. I listed, each accusation punctuating the tension. I'll always be your daughter and your sister, I added. But I refuse to be your personal ATM. As I walked out the door, I heard them calling me ungrateful, selfish, heartless, but for the first time those words didn't hurt. 6 months later, I had not spoken to my family. They tried to reconnect, always with thinly veiled financial requests through mutual friends. Meanwhile, I was thriving. My apartment was perfect, my career was advancing rapidly, and the royalties from my app kept accumulating steadily. I even started traveling, bought nicer clothes, though still nothing Olivia would approve of, and began dating someone who appreciated my practical nature. Occasionally, I wondered if I'd made the right decision, but then I recalled how they had treated me, not as a beloved family member, but as a resource to be exploited. Walking away wasn't selfish, it was pure self-preservation. 6 months passed in quiet freedom. My apartment was a sanctuary, peaceful, tidy, and mine. My job flourished, and the royalties from my security app trickled in, more than enough to maintain a comfortable lifestyle. I stopped answering calls from Olivia and my parents when I realized every message came with a thinly veiled financial request. It wasn't that I didn't love them, I did. But their version of love came with strings, guilt, and an ever-growing price tag. One evening as I returned from work, I found an unfamiliar number ringing my phone. I ignored it, assuming it was another of Olivia's attempts to get money through a friend. But then a voicemail popped up. "Lucy, it's Dad. Please call me back. It's about your mom." Panic gripped me. I immediately called back. Dad's voice was strained. "She's in the hospital. Heart palpitations. They're keeping her overnight for tests." I was already grabbing my keys. "Which hospital?" When I arrived, Mom looked small and frail in the hospital bed, her usual vibrancy replaced with exhaustion. Dad sat beside her, holding her hand. Olivia wasn't there, no surprise. "Hey, Mom," I said softly, approaching the bed. Her eyes flickered open and a weak smile crossed her face. "Lucy, you came?" "Of course I came," I said, swallowing the lump in my throat. Dad rose and gestured for me to follow him outside. His face was lined with worry. "The doctors say she's exhausted, too much stress, not enough rest. The bills, Lucy, they're drowning us. We're months behind on the mortgage. Olivia and James are barely scraping by, and his voice faltered. "I'm sorry, Lucy. We should never have put so much on you." For the first time in months, I saw my father not as someone who let Olivia push me aside, but as a man who felt helpless, a man who had failed to protect his family from financial ruin. "I'll cover Mom's medical bills," I said. "But the rest? I can't keep supporting everyone, Dad. It's not sustainable or fair." He nodded slowly. "I understand. I don't want you to pay for Olivia and James anymore. They need to stand on their own. I just want your mom to come home to a house that isn't being taken from us." I exhaled sharply. "Let me think about it." The next day, Mom was discharged, looking better but still weak. Olivia finally showed up late, of course, with James trailing behind. "Mom, thank God you're okay," Olivia exclaimed dramatically. Then she turned to me, her voice bitter. "So what now, Lucy? Are you going to swoop in like a hero and save the house too?" I met her glare calmly. "No, Olivia. I'm going to help Mom and Dad. But you and James need to figure things out yourselves." Her face twisted with anger. "You're such a selfish brat. You have all this money. What, you think you're too good to help your family now?" "I think I've helped enough," I replied evenly. "It's time you grow up, Olivia. You have a child. Start acting like a parent, not a spoiled teenager." For once, Olivia had no snarky comeback. Over the next week, I met with a financial advisor. I paid off the remaining mortgage for Mom and Dad's house, but under one condition. Olivia and James had to move out. It wasn't an easy conversation, but Dad backed me up. "Lucy's right," he told Olivia. "You and James have had enough time to figure things out. We love you, but we can't keep enabling this. It's time you stand on your own." The eviction wasn't dramatic. Olivia huffed and cried, called me names I won't repeat, but in the end she packed her bags. James found them a small apartment closer to his work. They weren't happy, but for the first time they were independent. Mom made a full recovery. Without the constant financial strain, Dad seemed lighter too. They even started picking up old hobbies. Mom took a painting class, and Dad joined a local fishing group. It was strange to see them rediscover life beyond bills and Olivia's chaos. As for me, I finally felt free. My app royalties continued rolling in, and I started developing a new project, one that excited me even more. My new apartment became a home filled with warmth, plants I actually managed to keep alive, and a circle of friends who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. One day, months later, Olivia sent me a text. It was short and blunt. We got a new place. James is making more now. I'm working full-time too. I still think you're a selfish jerk, but thanks for making me grow up. Ethan misses you. It wasn't an apology. Olivia wasn't wired for those. But it was something. And maybe, just maybe, it was enough. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was running on empty. I felt whole. I wasn't an ATM. I wasn't a crutch. I was Lucy, and that was more than enough. The end.